Hello, hi, how are you doing? This is AD from Civilized Studio and I welcome you back to the channel. In today's video, we will continue our C programming / coding journey from where we left off last time. In the last video, we went over some basic C programming. We used if statements, we used the integer data type, we used modifiers, we used all these things to make a rather simple program. And in today's video, we are going to be using enums. What are enums? Well, I will tell you once we get to them. But first, let's take a look at the program description for today's video. Here it is. I chose this because it allows us to use enums. You can make it without it, but I chose this program description from my university because it allows us to use enums and it's rather simple. So I think it would be a good introduction to other data types. So without further ado, let's go ahead and read through this program description. A dam should stop releasing water when the water level is below 20 meters. When the water level is between 20 meters and below 40 meters, water should be released using one pump. From a water level of 40 meters and above, two pumps should release water. If the water level rises above 67.5 meters, the dam should enter emergency mode and open the emergency release valves. Develop a function dam control double water level to control the dam. Depending on the water level, it should switch everything off, activate one pump, activate two pumps, or activate two pumps plus the emergency valve. So here's the program description. What it wants us to do is to implement this function over here called dam control, and it has a input parameter of type double. What is double? Well, I'll tell you once again once we start actual coding. So I went ahead and created the file called dam.c, which we will use to write down our code. Before we actually begin, let's take a look at the program description once more. So our job is to create a function called dam control with double water level as the input parameter, and depending on this water level, it should switch everything off, which basically means no pump is active, or activate one pump, activate two pumps, or activate two pumps plus the emergency valve. We'll just call this the emergency mode or just emergency. So that's our job for today's video. And what I like to do is I have this program description always open on my second monitor. If you want to take a screenshot to follow along, then I'll give you a few moments, or I will also be putting down this program description in the description for this video. Too many descriptions. So now that we have an idea of what we're actually doing, let's begin with the actual coding. Like always, I'm going to go ahead and include the standard library editor, which is called stdio.h. And now we're going to come to the interesting part and actually use what's called enums or in-long enumerations. We go ahead and write the code, and I will explain once I have actually written down the different enumerations. What are these different enumerations? Well, these different enumerations or these different types are just what we read in the program description, which is one pump, two pumps, or that emergency mode. I think I should also add one more called no pump for when the water level is below 20 meters. And what are we going to call this different enumerations, or rather what is this new type which has these different enumerations? Well, it's going to be called control. So what have we done here? Well, we have created, with the help of this typedef or type definition keyword, a new type called control. And no pump, one pump, two pumps, and emergency are its different enumerations or types. Just like integer, float, double are defined types, we have created a new type called control. You can do it without typedef, but then you would have to use something like enum control instead of just being able to just use control, which you can do if you write typedef. So when we write typedef, when we write type def or type definition, enum, and then we write the different enumerations, and at the end we write the name of this new type. So type definition creates a new type called control, and enum lists its different enumerations, which are no pump, one pump, two pumps, and emergency. So these are the different enumerations, and typedef enum is useful when you want to create a new type which is not already defined. Again, like integer, double, float, they are all defined types. Similarly, we have created here a new type called control, with what's in the brackets being its different enumerations. So that we have now created a new type, it's time to implement the function, which is called dam control. And for its input parameter, we're gonna be using double water level, or rather the input parameter is of type double. Well, what is double? In the last video we used integers. So if we have something like, let's say 7 is a whole number, and to store it, or rather its type is of type integer. So whole numbers are written with 7. If you want to write something like 7.5 or rather 67.5 like we want to do in this program, we are going to be using something called double. So if you have decimal values, then you use double. Float, if you have whole numbers like 1, 2, 3, you use integers. Simple as that. So now that we have created a new type called control with the help of type definition, and with the help of enum, we have listed its different enumerations: no pump, one pump, two pumps, emergency. We can go ahead and use this in our dam control function. Thinking about the dam control function, it would be better if we used our new type here called control dam control water level. There we go. So what this means is the return type of this function would be of type control. With the help of typedef, once again, we create a new type called control. We list its different enumerations, or its different subtypes, or its different types. We can use it in our code. Since we've already done that, if we did this later, then it would be a problem. But since we have already declared what control is and what its different enumerations are, we can go ahead and use it in our control, in our dam control function. So the first thing is to implement what happens when the water level is below 20 meters. And what happens is basically nothing. No pump is active, and to implement that, we're going to use, like we did in our last video, if statements. If water level is below 20 meters, or rather just 20, we're going to go ahead and return no pump. There we go. No pump is a return type of control. That's why we use control here, because we want to always tell the function what kind of value are we getting back. If we were to get an integer back, we will write here int dam control, but since we are returning no pump, which is of type control, then we go ahead and write here control. There we go. So the next step is to implement what happens when the water level is between 20 and below 40 meters. So we go ahead and write if water level is greater than equal to 20, but below 40 meters. Below 40 meters. And if the water level is between 20 and 40, we just go ahead and return one pump, which is again an enumeration of type control. There we go. Return one pump. And the next thing is to implement what happens when the water level is above 40 meters, but below 67.5. So we go ahead and write if water level is greater than equal to 40, but less than 67.5 meters, then we have gotten emergency, or rather return the emergency mode. Return emergency. There we go. So these are our different, I think we missed one. Yeah, we missed one. We did miss one. And the one we missed was if the water level rises above 67.5 meters, then we just go ahead and return, or the control goes into emergency mode, and IoT emergency should be 2 pumps. Here we go, 2 pumps. And if the water level is greater than 67.5, then we return the emergency mode, or the control, or the dam control goes into the emergency mode. There we go. If water level is less than, and if water level is greater than, now let's make it greater than or equal to. So these are different cases. If water level is less than 20, we return no pump, enum, and enumeration of type control. If the water level is between 20 and 40, we return one pump. If it's between 40 and below 67.5, we return 2 pumps. If it's greater than 67.5, we return emergency. So with the help of typedef, we can create a new type called control, and with the help of enum, it says enum control. That just means that whatever is in these brackets are the different enumerations of type control. And since we did that, we can go ahead and write control, dam control, because we are returning no pump, 1 pump, 2 pumps, or emergency, all enumerations of type control. We just need to add one more thing, and that is what happens if none of these conditions are met. Some of you might be thinking, well, how could that happen if the water level could not be negative? And even if it's negative, it's still less than 20 pump. It's still less than 20 meters, and we return no pump. Well, in C, every function, or almost every function, needs a return type. Needs a default return type. If none of these conditions are met, we still need to return something, because we have written a function called control dam control, and its job is to return something of type control. So we're just going to go ahead and return no pump, which is our default return value, or default return type. If none of these if conditions are met, the function just returns no pump. So now that we have written the dam control function, let's quickly add a function stub for main, and we will go ahead and compile this in our terminal just to see if we have made any errors. There's a function stub for main, and let's just go ahead and compile this to make sure that we haven't made any errors. Looks like we haven't. So the next thing would be to test if this actually works. And to do that, we will go ahead in the main function, and we'll create a new variable called control check. And what this does is it calls the damp control function with the value of 10. So check is a variable of type control, and it calls the damp control function and passes 10 as the input parameter. So what should happen is the first if condition should be fulfilled. The compiler should go here and check the water level is less than 20, which it is. 10 is less than 20, and it should return no pump, and check should save no pump as its value. So let's go ahead and let's use if statements to check if check is actually equal to no pump. To compare two values, you use double equal to assign values, you just use single equal to sign. So we go ahead and we write if check is equal to no pump, then we go ahead and write printf test passed. Let's go ahead and save that, and let's give it another run. Let's go ahead and make that, and let's go ahead and run this damn file. There we go, test passed. So our program works correctly. Well, before we say that, let's give it a double value. Let's go ahead and let's write check is equal to damp control, let's say 22.5. 22.5 is a decimal or a double value, and what should happen is it should return 1 pump. So let's check if it does that. If check is equal to 1 pump, we'll go ahead and write printf test to passed. Go ahead and close that, and we'll compile this again because we have made changes to the code, and we go ahead and run this. Test passed, test 2 passed. So our program works as intended, and I'm just going to add a new line character. This is called a new line character, and what it does is it adds a new line after test passed. Right now it's all in the same line, test passed, test 2 passed. What this does is it adds a new line after test passed has been printed, so that test 2 passed goes on to the next line. Let's go ahead and save that, and let's give it a final run. Make dam and run dam. There we go. Test passed, test 2 passed. So our dam control function works as intended, and that's it. That was all I wrote for today's video. Today we used enums. Once again, how this works is that we created a new type called control with the help of type definition. Type def control creates a new type, and enum lists its different enumerations. So no pump, 1 pump, 2 pumps, emergency are all enumerations or different types of control. And since we did that at the beginning of our program, we can use it later as a return type for our function control dam control, or rather as a type for our variable check. That was all I wrote for today's video. If you found the video interesting, as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Till next time.